Alright, so welcome back once again. Here in this lecture, we will talk about the blueprints. Okay, so a quick revision that in the previous lecture, we will talk about the different kinds of blueprints in the Unreal Engine. Now we are going to talk about the actor blueprint. I mean, we are going to see the interface of the actor blueprint. So that's where we have concluded the previous video, and I'm opening this video blueprint here. So this is the common thing that when you open your actor blueprint for the first time, this is how it will look like. We already know that. So we will understand what are the things that is the blueprint editor interface will looks like. So first things first, we will go for the first one, which is known as menu bar. Okay, here this was called as menu bar. So menu bar contain the common options that is available for the entire project. For example, let's say we can go for the file option, then you can see you can save that, and you can open an assets. So this will contain all the information related to the particular project file. And then we will go for the edit, then you can go for the project settings, then how your project is built. So mostly, like for example, how the collision needs to happen and what are the changes that you can do for the entire components of an engine. You can edit it there in the project settings. And then we will go for the assets. So those are the advanced concept you will see at the end of this course. And view and debug window, this is the most using window, the most using tab in the Unreal, which means you can sometimes some windows we don't need, sometimes some windows we need. So you can, if some window is missing here, missing in the missing in your interface, editor interface, then you can go here and you can use it. So this will be available here in the Windows tool. And then we can go for the tools. So this is the notable change in the Unreal Engine 5, where it means that now we are currently focusing on the blueprint, but if you need your project to get into the C++, then you can go for the tools. And then you can see here, you can add the new C++ class, and your project now become supported for C++ as well as blueprint. So this is the option that is introduced as the new thing in the new Unreal Engine 5. Alright, so now we will talk about the blueprint interface. So we have seen about the menu bar, okay, and then now we will go and talk about the toolbar. So this is known as toolbar. Here you can see the options that is almost available, that is used by the particular blueprint. For example, let's say if this is the save button. Okay, it can save all the changes that you have done here in this particular blueprint. And you can use the browse assets, which means if you click this icon, like for example I am here, but I need to know the location of this blueprint in my content browser in my project, then I can click this button. It will automatically open the file path with the content browser. There you can see the particular blueprint is where the particular blueprint is located. And then we have the compile option. Let's say what is meant by compiling is whatever changes you are making, the blueprint needs to know about it. You need to get updated to the change. So that's what, for example, let's say I can add a component like um, maybe a static mesh for plane. You can see here the currently it will change like the question mark. It needs to be dirty, needs to be recompiled. So the blueprint needs to know about the change each and every time after you do some changes. You need the blueprint needs to get updated. So that is what compile will do. So currently now I'm deleting this and I click the compile again. So that's the thing. This is the source control. I mean, if you are aware of the GitHub, so you will understand this very familiar. All right, so this one will talk about the source control, which we are not going to cover in this course. And this is the find option. So what I need to find, if you click the find, you can go for the find result option. There I can see, let's say I'm going to type interact. Nothing will happen because we still have the interact function here, but it will show nothing. But let's say I can add some variables like xyz. Okay, and I'm going to find for this variable like what is meant by xyz. So I can go here and type xyz, so it is showing me the value that okay, it is a member variable, which means the variable is present within this blueprint. It is a local variable, okay, and it's a boolean data type. So this is how you can use the find option, and then you can use the hide unrelated, which means if you select a function, if any other things that is not related to the particular function, or people call it as nodes, you can use the hide related unrelated option. You can use this option. So class settings, I'm going to delete this variable, compile. So class settings, this is one of the useful and most important window in the blueprint, where you can see here I can have the parent class, right? We will talk about when we start doing our final project in this course, we will talk about this one. So here this one will contain the parent class, means what is the hierarchy that you need to derive from. So actor means it has only this simple interaction, okay, they are not advanced as the class level blueprint, sorry, character level blueprint, but you can have all the basic functionalities that the actor needs to get placed in the world. This is the, so this is inherited from the actor blueprints. And then you can have some common options that you don't need to worry about, but you need to add here interfaces. Remember this, how we can create the interfaces and how we have implemented. Don't say add to the blueprint, you need to say the terminology that you have implemented the interfaces, implemented that particular interface. So BPA interactable, remember this, in the previous lecture we have done this. So we can implement the interface here in the class settings. And then class defaults, so this is the important tab that contains, that will gives you most of the essential information. When you click on the class default, you will go for the, you will need to focus on the details panel. So details panel, we will talk about that. And what is meant by simulation here, this one we will talk about this later. What is meant by simulation? Simulation means, let's say if you have any particle component that you can add to the blueprint. For example, let's say there was a fountain like of particle that is added to the blueprint as a component, you can use the simulation. So that simulation can happen in the viewport. You don't need to place this actor like drag and drop from the content browser you don't need to place it in the world. So simulation, you can directly see the changes here by using this, by toggling to this option, okay. And this is called as the play pause window, where it means if you click the play, the game will start, okay, the level will start and you will see the play option like this, for example, okay. So here you can see here, you can start playing the game with those things, okay. So this is how it looks like. If you click this one, so basically it will open a new window and start playing this. All right, so now we can also have these three dotted icons, which means you can have different kinds of options, like what is the what is the way, what is the mode that you need to play, like you need to play it in a standard mobile thing, or you need to visualize it in a standalone game, or you just need to simulate the things. And you can test the multiplayer things also, like for example, let's say if you give the 3, means you can have 3 different windows, which we will talk about that later. It's a advanced concept beyond this course, the scope is beyond this course. And then finally we have it is a debug option, which means you can select those any object and you can start debugging the purpose. We will see that in the last lecture of this last session of this course. And then finally we have the component step. So components, what is meant by the components? So components are the building block of an actor that describes, which handles the separate functionality of the actor. Let's say here we have the, ignore this self one because it is the basic component that is created by the Unreal Engine to recognize this, okay. Without the self object you can't able to talk about the actor. So this is the basic one that is created by default by the Unreal Engine itself. So we can have a scene root component. This is called scene root component. Why though it is called a scene root component? First of all, what is meant by scene root component? Like I said, components will handle the separate functionality. So it is used for, yeah, good versatility in our code. For example, let's say I can add different component to an actor. So here scene root component will define that. For example, what is the standard thing? If I click here, you can't select it here, but if I select it here, okay, if I drag and drop this here, okay, so here this is the simple object, this is the instance of our blueprint. I dragged and dropped it here from the blueprint, and you can see I can able to start moving this, okay, using these three arrows. All right, so these three arrows, what we are actually doing is we are actually moving the particular root component of the actor. Okay, this is what it means. So you can add different components which act as different functionalities. For example, let's say I can click the add button here, and then I can type the static mesh, okay, or maybe you can for simplicity sake I can say that I'm going to add spear. Okay, so after adding the spear, you can see I don't need to rename it for now, and I need to click the compile button. There you can see spear. Okay, so if you go for the editor, you can able to clearly see this. Now our actor is now becoming has become the spear object. Okay, so guys, I wish to share you one more keyboard shortcut here, which is if I press the end key on my keyboard by selecting the spear, our blueprint object instance, and I'm going to press the end key. Here you can see this is not behaving as we expected. Like for example, it will actually what the end key will do, it will snap the surface. For example, let's say if I have this cube here, I am moving it in the Z direction. If I press the enter, sorry, if I press the end key, you can see the object is correctly snapping to the ground. But what happened to this spear? Like I'm going to type here, it needs to act, it needs to get placed like this, like, but why is it going to, like, half of the spear is inside the platform? This is not the expected result, right? So how can we tackle this? So far you see that the root component, right? So we are going to replace the root component with our spear. So spear geometry, Unreal Engine already knows what is the geometry of the spear. Like, okay, this is the outer surface of the spear, so we should not place it inside the platform. It knows it. But now, after making it as the root component, you can see now if I press the end key again in my keyboard, there you go. We are getting the result that we needed actually. So this is how you need to make the root component. You need to select your root component properly. All right. So by default, Unreal Engine has their own default root component, but if you wish that you need to have this certain other root component, then you can replace them by simply drag and drop into the particular root component. If you delete the spear like this, the Unreal Engine will be back to the default scene root component. I'm pressing the Ctrl C for the undo operation. Compile. I need this spear, so this looks good. Now we will move on to the next window, which is my blueprint. So guys, this is the very important tab that you will see almost in each and every blueprint. So my blueprint tab, this will contain the essential option that each and every blueprint will support. So first thing is we will see about the graph. So we can see here we have the event graph, and these are called as events that is available within the graph. Okay, so event begin play, event actor begin overlap, event tick. So this is how the event graph interface will look like. We will see that. So if I start deleting some of the things, like if I click the actor begin overlap and I delete those, it will automatically hide from the event graph. Okay, so event graph will be useful for managing the dynamic actions. That if you need to let's say if some event is happening and you are going to interact with the other actor, like you are colliding with the other actor, if some actor needs to get you destroyed, then you can give the logic in the event graph. All right, now next thing is functions. So functions, we will talk about this in the next lecture deeply, but for now, as a glimpse, for example, let's say if I press a gun, if I need to make my gun shoot bullets, then I need to check whether my bullets are not empty. Okay, my mag is not empty. Okay, so there are a lot of step-by-step conditions that we need to check, and then we need to process the bullet. So this is where functions come handy. So I can name that entire process as shoot, then I can write my own logic inside the event graph, I mean particularly inside the function graph. You will see about that. And interfaces we already know, we have implemented that interfaces in the class settings, so that if the interface has any function, this will comes like this here. All right, so now next thing is variables are like I said, it is the fundamental data that your blueprint needs in order to communicate. Like for example, the character might have health. If this object was a gun, then it will have the ammo, it will have the color, it can have the name. So variables are different, we will talk about that in the next lecture. And then components, here we have the sphere component. If I start adding one more component, it will comes here. Okay, so component tab will contain all the components, essential component that your blueprint currently had. Event dispatches, so this is the advanced concept. Before getting our hands on the event dispatches, we need to know about the what is meant by events. Okay, we will talk about that later in the later lectures. And so far we can move on to the next window, which is viewport. This is the visual representation of your blueprint. Like you can do your logic here, which is happening in the background, which is behind your scenes. It's not going to visible for you in the game. So viewport actually defines how the actor will look like if it get placed in the world, how the actor will look like initially. So this is where the viewport option is there. For example, I can open some other blueprint, might be a character blueprint. Here you can see here, there you go. Here you can see how my character will look like. Okay, so this is the main thing. For example, let's say if I am changing the material of my character, then see here, so the changes I am doing for my blueprint, I can see it visually. Okay, so this is the power of the viewport. You can see how your object is currently getting displayed, or how your object is currently looks like, how your object currently looks like. So viewport will handle those things. All right, so now next thing is construction script, which we will talk later in this course. After getting our hands on variables and functions and flow controls, we will talk about the construction script. So construction script helps you to perform the design time, okay, design time operations within the editor. For example, let's say I can give you a simple example, like imagine a chessboard. Okay, if I place the actor here, if I try to move it like 500 units away, this is not the good place to place the actor. Then I can change the actor material as red color. Okay, this is where construction script is mostly used in the design time. And then finally we have event graph. So event graph editor, so this is the fundamental thing in the blueprint, that you will place your logic here. For example, the red colored things are known as events. Okay, and then we will talk about that, what is the events, how your function will look like, how the variables will look like, what are the different kinds of variable in the Unreal Engine. We will talk about that in the upcoming lecture, but I need you guys to understand that you need to, if your thing has any runtime logic, then you need to place it here. Event graph will contain the logic for the particular blueprint that needs to behave when you are trying to communicate with the things, or basically this will drive the entire blueprint. Okay, so we have one more important detail window, that is details. So if I click any component, please note here, though currently this is not showing anything, right? So if I click on the actor root component, I mean self, not the root component, I mean self, sphere is the root component. If I click the self, then you can see the all the required information that based on this blueprint will be displayed here. Like it has this certain events that you can place, that you can use within those things. And for example, sphere is already a component. Okay, this is the root component as well, and sphere is separately, it is called static mesh component. If you click the sphere, you can see I already told it was a static mesh component. Then it will display all the properties of the static mesh component that should be visible for the blueprint, so that you can make the change. For example, I have selected the sphere component, but if I select the self blueprint, there will be no static mesh option. I can't change the mesh because like I said, each component will do separate purpose. And then you can see the sphere has this much of things. I can go for the static mesh category, and then I can change it to, for example, I can change it to the cylinder. Now this is not the full cylinder, it's a quarter cylinder. Okay, so I can see it here like this. This will get changed. All right, so I'm back to the sphere. Oh, I missed it. Okay, let's make it as the cylinder, full cylinder. Okay, I'm going to place it as the full cylinder. All right, that's fair, better enough. So my details panel will differ by each component and component. For example, let's say if I add any camera component maybe. Okay, now you can see my details panel is completely different. Okay, it because it contains the essential information that you can manipulate or you can tweak with the particular component. So for each component, details panel will differ. All right, so this is how the details panel will work, and this is the fundamental editor interface that you will that you need to understand before getting your hands on the blueprint. All right, one quick information, so one quick guide, yes, a quick glimpse of what we have recalled throughout this. So this is how you need to open a actor blueprint. You need to go for the third person, you need to go for the blueprints, and I'm opening my simple object. So components tab, this is the very important part. So each and every blueprint will contain the different kinds of component, and you can add n number of components for the blueprint. Okay, a blueprint is made up of lot of different components that will handle the different cases, use cases. And then each blueprint have the root component. Okay, and then each component have the root component, and then you can replace the root component with any of the components that you have added within the components tab. Then the Unreal Engine will automatically assume that it was the root component. So based on the geometry of that component, it will readjust itself. All right, and then we have the My Blueprint tab, which contains the essential functionalities that is available within the blueprints, like graph, which means I have told you event graph is the area where you will connect the logic, and you can, using the events, you will drive your gameplay. And functions will encapsulate the certain information, like for example, if you are trying to shoot a gun, you need to check for the bullets, you need to check for the magazine capacity, and like this there are a lot of conditions are there to make the shoot happen, so that you can use the function there. Interfaces, like interfaces will have different kinds of functionalities that you can override. So in the future we will see more about the interfaces. And macros means this will act like the formula. Like we already seen, macros are macros are defined, or it can be used within the, it can be processed in the compile time. So you can use the certain constant things that the game requires or game knows before the runtime. Variables are the building blocks that will help us to contain the data about this blueprint or any data that needs to communicate with the other blueprint. So variables are the very key source, and then we have the components here listed as the variables. Okay, and then we finally have the event dispatches, which we will see in the upcoming lecture, because we need to know about those events. And then we have the viewport construction script, which will run. Okay, sorry. So we have the construction script which will run on the which will run in the design time. Okay, I have given a solid example as well, right? And then we have the details panel as well. So details panel, for example, let's say if you try to create, like for example, if you try to create anything with the components, then details panel will differ. For example, let's say I'm clicking the self component. So here you can see the option. This is completely different from selecting the sphere component. So for each component, it had its own variable which can be shared to the instances, and some variables are altered for the particular blueprint. So this can be this both of this will differ. So for each component, the details panel will get refreshed, and this will contain different options based on the component. So in the next lecture, we will talk about how we can add the variables, and when and where to use the variables, and what is the definition for the variables, what are the data types, and we will see all those information in the next class. Thank you guys. Thank you so much.